Hey, welcome back to our podcast. We are up to episode 63 today. So, our podcast is YOML. It's called the Year of Magical Learning. And this is where we read books, reflect on what we learn, and we discuss about it, and so we can learn even more. So take it over, Chris.
Yeah. So today's book we're going to be talking about is a book called Enlightenment Now by Steven Pinker. It's the case for reason, science, humanism, and progress. Do you guys know Steven Pinker? Are you guys familiar with that name?
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Yeah, he's a pretty famous. I think he works at Harvard, maybe, or something like that. Yeah. So he's a pretty famous just thinker out there. I think he calls himself a public thinker, maybe, or public intellectual, cognitive scientist as well. That he's that kind of guy. He's one of those like Sam Smiths and Jordan Peterson's, I think, kind of contemporaries out there in the world. But anyway, this particular book, actually, I think I came across this one by like some list that was like stuff that Bill Gates reads or whatever, and he was like, this book's like the best book. I was like, okay, all right, I'll check it out. It was actually a really, really long book, really long. It's like it's a mountain to go climb. But the gist of the book is about the case for reason, science, humanism, and progress around the Enlightenment, and how that still drives us forward today, and it makes the world a better place in general. And it's kind of about taking a pause a little bit, and seeing how far we've come, but also at the same time not discounting the fact that we still have a long way to go, but at the same time like kind of enjoying the moment around and the power that the Enlightenment has, and science and reason has had in the history of humanity, and how much we've progressed, basically, is the gist of the book at a high level. So my particular reflection on this one was zoom out to zoom back in again. And what I kind of mean by that at a high level is, I can't remember what book I read. I feel like it was Surely You're Joking, Mr. Feynman, a book about Richard Feynman that we haven't talked about yet. But anyway, I can't remember the exact reference of the book that I heard this in the past, but it was about like visualizing life as like a chessboard, and you're the chess pieces on the board, and you're staring at your next move in front of you, kind of thing. And when you're on the chessboard and you're in the moment, like everything feels very much so like it's very tactical, and you're just looking at what you have to do next, kind of thing. Well, just like Steven Pinker talks about in this whole entire book of the Enlightenment, and zooming out to like gain perspective, and to gain that clarity of just how far you've come, and you can be able to see the whole board and figure out where you want to go. That's my general thought that this book made me think about, is like thinking about yourself as a little player on a chessboard, and zooming out to like see how far you've moved, and how far you've come, and how far you want to go, but surveying the whole board, and taking in all the different perspectives you can take in, and seeing things from a different perspective. So in particular, while I was writing this one, this was back in December, and that was Q4 and at Salesforce, which is always like a very stressful time, hyper stressful time in that environment, by design. It really ratchets up the pressure in general, and I happened to be reading this book at the time that I was writing this reflection. That was From Bacteria to Bach and Back Again, which I don't know, True, if you remember me reading that one. It had me all messed up, where I was like, it was messing with some of the cognitive illusions, and things that mental games that I'd been playing for the past couple of years to try to move forward with Amelia, not in my life, kind of thing. And it was really messing with me, and there was a lot going on when I was writing this one, but it reminded me, as I was writing this reflection this day, just how far we've come in this whole entire process. And it started to make me think about like the whole clubbing thing. And True, you and I, we've met every single day now for what, like, I don't know, 20 months in a row, I mean, maybe we've missed a couple days, here and there for emergencies, or like a vacation or something along the lines between the two of us. But for the most part, over the past like 20 months, we've pretty much met every single night. We've started a couple different businesses out of this. We had like 20 some people go through the core values quest. I wrote a book. I'm working on another book. I won a couple tennis tournaments. I had another child, ran a 6-minute mile. went through the NICU twice, read almost 200 books or over 200 books now, et cetera, right? There's a lot of accomplishments that have happened. I don't recognize it a lot of times, and that's not what this journey is about. But at the end of the day, it made me, when I zoomed out a little bit, I started to feel a little bit happier, looking back at the mountain that we've climbed and can survey that we're going in the right direction, right? So that was this book got me to kind of really think about the case for values, the case for purpose, and how that can affect people's life in general, and how far we can come, and to appreciate how far we've come as well. And then my final thought on this one was a quote that stuck with me for a really long time with Steven Pinker. After I read this one, was the irony about progressives is that they actually hate progress. Like, I mean, nobody ever gets excited. Nobody ever goes, oh yeah, we have abortion rights for women. We have, blah, blah, blah. It's always like something else is going wrong. It's never enough. It's never, there's always this yearning for something more in the future, when sometimes it's good to stop in the present and the here and now and see how far you've come, kind of thing. So that's my high level overview for this book. I'd love to get your guys' thoughts. The question that came up at the end of it was, what are some of the areas of progress that you can be proud of today when you take some time to zoom out on your own life? So I'd love to hear from you guys.
Who wants to start?
You do. You talk, you start. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I've said it. I don't know if I've said it on, here before, but, so often that sounds so easy, but it can be so hard to do. Just take a moment and pause. And like you said, zoom out, like just to stop for a moment, kind of assess everything. And that's something I know, and I tell myself, but I have such a difficult time doing it. And I think that's so important to sometimes, just stop, zoom out, take a look at everything, and enjoy the progress of what you made. Like, I feel the same way. I feel I'm had to do this today. I had to make sure I made it, because I've been so stressed out with work, with being a dad, with being a husband, with trying to exercise, and it's just like one thing after the other, and that's all you see. And sometimes you just have to stop and zoom out. And I think that's mentally too. It's good for you to do. So it's a simple thing. It sounds so easy, but it can be very difficult sometimes.
Yeah. When you're in the trenches, that's all you see is, like, you see the forest, right? All you see is all the trees in front of you, and it's hard to remind yourself that you're actually, going somewhere, and where that path is, and how far you've come, right?
Yeah, so when you're in a well, like a frog in a well, you can't see the whole picture. And so a lot of times, and most of the time, in my case, I don't know about you guys, but in my case, we are always myopic in terms of what we do. We don't see the big picture, because we are always distracted by these crises here, the crisis there. We don't see the big picture. So when I'm thinking about the zoom out and zoom back in, is thinking about, strategy versus tactics, right? How often do you look at your strategies, and how often you look at the tactics? And so most people would say, I would do, 5% strategies and 95% tactics. But to me, in order to be the most optimal path, you have to do the reverse. You have to always look at the picture from a 30,000 feet view and see exactly, are you making progress in the right direction? You can step on the gas pedal, but you go in the wrong directions. So are you going to be better because you went fast, or because you take time to think about what you're doing? It is making the additions a step closer to what it is you really want. So go back to the core value we have. We have to first spend the time to determine the core values, what we really want, what would make us be proud of what we can achieve when we get there. And having that, I think, kind of zoom in to do the thing, but always zoom out. To me, at least, 50-50. If you can do the 90-10, but you have to always look at the big picture. The big picture is what guides you. Your core value is what guides you. So you have to spend the time to do that. For example, let's say we know that the environment for us is very crucial. Like, hey, we want to be healthy. We want to be in a place where a lot of healthy people there because they encourage us to be healthy. Or we want to get a job in a place where we like, or we want to live in a city that is be beneficial for us. But how many minutes did you take the time to decide what city is best for you before you move? We don't do that. We spend very little time, but we spend almost our entire life in the city we pick at a whim.
Right. It's good. It's a good point. That's a really good point.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's like stepping on the wrong bus. You spend so much time doing something that's so small in comparison to the impact it will make for your life, and spend so little time making decisions on something that's going to affect you the whole entire journey, the whole entire life. And so it is very, very important, in my opinion, to piggyback on your reflection. We need to zoom out and zoom back in almost on
Every
a
day.
regular pace.
Yeah.
It's a throttling. It's a kind of a concept where you speed up a little bit. You kind of assess how you've done. Because I can tell you said the 90-10 originally, and I was like, that's when I get analysis paralysis, where then I just am trying to analyze, understand, plan, and then I don't get anything done. Nor do the opposite, where I'm throttling, and then all of a sudden I'm working hard. I burn myself out, realize it's not the thing to do, and I never take a minute to stop and kind of, I probably go too extreme on each end, and it's the kind of
right. So we cannot be in an extreme. We have to have a little bit of thinking, a little bit of doing, a little bit of thinking, a little bit of doing. Just can't think all the time and can't do all the time, because when you do without thinking, without the map, without the direction, you probably most probably you're gonna do the wrong thing, right? But if you think all the time, you don't do anything, nothing happens.
And not everyone has got the balance like True does. Now, do you guys feel like there's one you lean towards, whether the kind of the analysis or the tactics?
For me is what I like in like I say, my philosophy is think a little, do a little. So it's almost like a 50-50 or 60-40. But thinking is important because I need to be sure that what I'm doing, it is aligned with my core values. Because if I define the time to spend on defining what my core values is, because that is essentially exploring and discover who I am. And then what I do is always going to add to it. It's not going to, negatively impact. And so subtracting from the progress I've made. So I have to spend the time to think about what it is that I need to do or want to do versus doing them before I be sure of what I need to be and I need to do with it. So for me, it's like I don't want to get to the point where I'm paralyzed by not analyzing everything. I don't want to analyze so much. I just want to analyze enough to get a level of confidence. Then I do them, and then I use the insight information I get from doing, and then analyze again. It's like a Bayesian decision tree. Each information point you get, you reassess, reevaluate the path you want to make.
I think it's really interesting that you said you think a little and you do it. Was think a little, do a little, and you didn't say a lot, because I know, like I try to think about, plan everything out. Look at again all these different areas of my life, and then I try to do all these different areas of my life. I think that I don't know why that just hit me, struck me when you said that. Maybe just really break it down into a smaller area and just do a little bit and a little bit there, and look at that. And that's, I think, we look at almost sometimes when you talk about zooming out, we almost look at, don't zoom out, look at everything. Look at something, zoom out on one specific thing. And then, I think that's a great little quote. Never heard it before. I love it.
Yeah, because that's my philosophy that I take with me. It's like, I don't want to be paralyzed, and neither though I don't want to do without thinking. So I say I need to think a little to see if this makes sense and pick a few options, and then do some of it and see if it makes sense to continue further, and then think again, do it again, think again, do it. But I'm doing this to the point where I'm almost isolating the focus I'm putting my effort on versus having a lot of things going on. I don't like to do too many things at once, right? I'm very good at what I do because that's the only thing I do. Everything else, I either don't do it or I will delegate to someone or I pay someone to do it. And so that helps me, you know, becoming, out of, kind of disorganized, disarray in my head. I want to keep my head clear. And so I don't go insane. Because if I do everything and I will be, competing and caring for everything, it's very tiring. And then when when that happens, right, you're mentally tired. You're going to be mentally tired before you're physically tired, because thinking takes a lot of energy. And so a lot of time people say, well, I have time to do this and that and the other, but no, you don't. Even if you do something, let's say I work, with a full-time job and I do the housework and I do a side job or do whatever, you think that you have the time to do it, and you're not affected in your capacity to think through some of these problems. You're wrong, because if you spend a time, the mental effort on one thing, the rest of them is going to take a hit just because you are exhausted in your head and your mental capacity. So you don't want to be as good. You may be good, but not. It wouldn't be. It would be better if you hadn't.
You're
So
being
it's hard to compare, because you have to compare against yourself.
What about Snowball and Chris? What are you guys, Chris? Look at you thinking.
Well, let's get Snow on this one. He's been quiet. We can't see him.
Yeah, I'm here though. I'm here.
Yeah, he may be making like funny face at me, and I don't know.
No. I've been listening. I've been listening well, and I think that none of us on our core values. I don't think if anyone wrote down their core values, I don't think there would be stressed, be anxious,
Right,
be worried, be fearful. And I think that as we try to get what we want, it turns out it's challenging to get what you want, actually, and it takes a lot more time than it actually. I've been thinking recently about, when I think about that, like how long projects take. That Thinking Fast and Slow book, about how he really just talked about projects they were working on, how it takes a lot more time to do things than you think it's going to take. And so I think we get frustrated when we aren't getting what we want, and I think that is part of the reflection, like stepping back. And I don't know why some people step back compared to others. I think it's maybe just something almost learned or ingrained or modeled, I think, from those around us. And I think there's the classic quote, work smarter, not harder. And I think true what you talk about as well is, like, yeah, you got to step back and figure out what the best strategy is, because when it comes down to, like, what are we doing? Like, we're really just trying to get what we want in life. It seems like to me. I've been asking myself question, what am I doing? What the heck are we doing? And so I think being strategic and being humble, whether it's something learned or we pick up and we, maybe someone tells us about it and we realize, like, oh wow, that worked. That did work, to step back and re-strategize. So I think it's something that we end up going through, or it's nice when people end up going through that ability to step back. And I think what Steven Pinker is really looking at too as well is, like, look where we've come from. Holy shit, like, we've come from a lot. Progressives, like, we don't gotta keep pushing to the middle, like, in terms of, like, yeah, sure, we need to keep going forward, but, like, life is really good for everybody, and we've done some amazing things. And I think we're still gonna look at these times in 100 years and be like, wow, we were primitive back then,
Right.
So I think progress is still going on, and I think it is just about that, like being strategic and not getting caught up in those ways of being anxious, worried, because we think that progress should come faster than it does. And I think that is something that actually we can educate people on, is like, things take time, step back, work smarter, not harder. And I think if we did that as a species, I think people would be more calm. And I think that is why things like stress reduction and meditation are, can really help with that, or anything, whether it's music therapy, other things, to step back and be like, okay, things are okay, yada, yada, and proceed.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, honestly. Actually, as you were talking about that, I couldn't help but think, like, Steven Pinker's core values and the Enlightenment clearly are listed on the book title. It's the case for reason, science, humanism, and progress, right? Like those are his core values. And he was taking a look back on this entire book of you know, how far we've come with our core values. And for me, like I was taking a hard look back, you know, when I was reflecting back on this every single, you know, this particular reflection and what I do every single day of, you know, how far we've come with the values that I'm trying to live my life by, and the things that I've seen manifest out of that. I'm not worried about that. I don't really care about it. I don't really celebrate it. But at the same time, like it, you know, if you focus on what matters to you, like reason, science, humanism, and progress for Steven Pinker, and for me, you know, the values that I really care about, like, you know, you end up making crazy progress in life. And you know, I think the shitty thing is that, like you were saying, when you're so, actually this goes to a book I'm reading right now that I just sent to Drew and Blake earlier today. It's called The Molecule of More. It goes back to dopamine. It's a book all about dopamine, and you know, which is the book, or which is the drug, or the you know, the
chemical?
the chemical, yeah, that makes us it's like our creativity. It makes us think about the future, and it makes us think about our imagination and everything, right? But he calls it in the book that I'm reading, the here and now drugs like serotonin and all the other oxytocin, whatever, the, you know, the other kind of chemicals in our brain that are the here and now drugs that make us appreciate the present. Like dopamine makes us appreciate the future and the progress, and you know, all the progress that we want to make, kind of thing. And I feel like it's so hard to like focus on the here and now sometimes and enjoy, you know, what you've done, and to access that side of your brain, which for me, Blake, to going back to your question of like, what do you do? This is what I do every day, right? Like I try to write every single day to have this thought with myself, right? To like refresh my own mind. Like this is the importance of writing for me, is to lock me into, you know, the here and now, and to really think creatively and deeply, and to kind of build the two worlds together, a little bit of dopamine and the here and now, you know, chemicals, I guess. Like it is really tough though.
Balance,
I mean, it's
right?
really tough. It's balance. Yeah. It's all about balance, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and when I think about someone like Blake, like, I mean, you got a family, a kid, job, like, I mean, all you guys had it, but like, I mean, when you're pulled in so many different directions about like expectations, and you don't take the time, well, it sounds like, you know, like Chris and Trio like are able to take more time for themselves, like to, you know, to, I don't know, to have a little more almost kind of quote downtime for themselves. And so, you know, so I think it can be really challenging though, like in modern life to
But I think the
strategize.
more distractions you have, the more things you have to do, the more you have to take time out for yourself. If not, you cannot continue.
Yep. Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah. I mean, 100%. Like that's, I think if there's a moral of this conversation, it's take more time to think and reflect and to be in the here and now, you know, versus the always thinking in the future, right? You know, I mean, like it's so hard, but like it needs to be, as much as you push for the future, like you need to push for the present as well.
Yeah, it's like the more you do, the more you need to not do, almost.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Totally right. I love that. That's a good quote. Awesome. Well, anyway, do you guys have any answers to the question real fast of what are some areas of progress that you guys have made today, where you know, if you were taking some time to zoom out, that you guys are proud of yourselves about, and then we could you know, wrap it up.
My kid.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like I've come to the point where I become more proud of the way I become intellectually. You know, with you, me, Chris, doing the company for the past, you know, almost 2 years now. I think in that 2 years, I've learned so much, and I become to the point where that I feel proud about the experience and the knowledge I've gotten. Just, you know, and having the perspective that I can balance myself and have myself a little bit peace of mind in, you know, in a way. And so to me, beyond just that, you know, it's a great feeling.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Of course. Yeah, go for it.
You said that you've been doing it for 20 months. Where in that timeline, you've been very consistent about it. When did you start feeling proud?
I would say about maybe a year into it.
It took 12 months. Is that because you didn't zoom out, or is that just because of it took that long of the consistency before?
Yeah, I've always, I got to the point where I'm not, a youngins anymore. So I do zoom out a lot, and my biggest strength is my mind, because I'm by nature I'm an like extreme introvert, and I spend most of my time in my head. I can simulate that stuff, so I do a lot of zoom out. But in order for me to feel very proud, it means that I'm able to have to accumulate a certain amount of whatever that my mind just set arbitrarily. Hey, I'm at this point where I'm very confident in what I say, and doesn't matter what I say. I don't really, um, kind of like care too much about the opinions of others, of what they think of me. Whether I say something silly or not, it doesn't matter. It's my opinion. I have come to learn that, and that makes me, I guess, like very like real me, just a real me. Whatever I say is what I think. I don't like, yeah, hey, I have to behave because society expects me to do this and that and the other. I don't. Those doesn't um prevent me and influence me in the way it has been in the past.
Love it.
Yeah, I think like progress for like myself that I'm proud of is, sometimes I get really frustrated with teaching, but like the progress that I've made on us having a farm to school kitchen, or a farm to school program, with cooking and planting, and that's been really cool. I'm also gonna lead like my first hike for my students in 2 weeks.
Awesome.
So I'm just excited about like the progress I'm making towards, I guess, how I want to educate, where like with more real world experiences and things that I'm passionate about, like food and getting outdoors. And less like inside the classroom way of doing things, and being able to do it like by kind of creating that rather than like jumping into a program that's already started.
Love it, man. That's really cool. Yeah, thanks for sharing, guys. Blake, I had a real quick thought for you about Cooper. Talk about evolutionarily designing such an amazing process of watching a kid grow. You can zoom out it's like you have to zoom out because you're like, they go so fast, like, and you see them progressing so much that you're like, you have to go take a step back and look at a photo every once in a while and go, damn, like that was just like 3 months ago, or damn, that was like 2 weeks. It's like so fast of a rapid progression that it's like it almost forces you to like, to focus on the here and now, because it's like, you're like, well, if I blink, it's going to be gone. Like, I'm not going to see any of this stuff anymore. So like evolution's smart, man. It's just, yeah, but you need them both is the point.
they have a million of years to think through these. So most of the time you can't beat evolution.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And I think the thing, even like evolution almost like, I think when we're in nature, I think it's really easy to zoom out, and whether it's a starry night sky or, sitting over a fire, or just, I think being in nature almost does, talk about like evolution, like does help us like reflect more. And I think it is more challenging to reflect, like being in such a quote modern day and age with electronics and lights around, and not as much of that like, natural beauty around us.
That's weird you say that. So me and my wife, we looked at a house this weekend, and it was a little bit ways out, and we all were just walking, and her mom was there too, and we were saying how we all felt different. We felt at ease, we felt calm, we were by a lake, and it wasn't in a city. We were just saying like, this is different, but we all like it. We felt like this is the way things are supposed to be. Yeah. And all of us kind of felt it and talked about it at the same time. It was so I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, you think about the lifespan of humanity is a million years, and we've only been doing the modern city and modern life for a few thousand years. So based on the time frame scale, you're talking about the whole year, and the last day of the year is what modern is representing. So when you go back to the way that you have been doing for the past 12 months, right, which is thinking about the calendar year, where the timeline of human evolution is from 1 year. The last day is what we call modern day. So you think about all the things that we've done for the longest time. That's is being, I guess, designed into the gene that you have. So you're gonna feel more compatible with the settings that was, in the past versus the modern that has completely changed the way that we have lived, eat, and behave ourselves. So that's why a lot of time nature brings back memory, brings back a feeling. You may not remember as much, but your cell remembers. It has a feeling of, hey, this is safe, this is compatible, this is peace.
Harmony,
And we are
balance.
basically creating out of, kind of out of frame for ourselves at this point.
Yeah, we're stressing ourselves for no reason. But
it's like you said, Salesforce in the fourth quarter design
like,
so
who
that
cares?
it becomes stressful.
Right.
By design for what? It's just because they wanted to,
Right.
and not
Well,
for any particular reason.
Because they got to report to Wall Street, that's why. I mean, and that's stupid. So
Because they decided they wanted to report to Wall Street.
Right, exactly. All right, fellas. So that was a good one. Any final thoughts? But if not, that was a fun conversation.
Yeah. So the lesson of the day is try to zoom out more.
Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna do tonight.
Love it.
All right. So that's all we have for this episode. So we hope to see you guys on the next one, and have a good one.
Thanks a lot.